So in this video, I'm going to be going over how do you clean brass and get the cleanest possible results. Yes, there's tons of ways to clean brass. I don't care about those. I want the best possible way. So the best possible way, my end goal is to make ammunition that is better than what I buy at the store. I'll have less malfunctions. I haven't had a malfunction yet because I take my time and I go through the steps. So let's get into it. What do we do before we put the brass in the tumbler? Some people just throw it right in. That's wrong. So first we're going to organize our brass by caliber. You'll see I have a couple pistol and rifle calibers here, different types of brass. So the reason why we sort our brass is because we are going to be depriming our brass. We deprime our brass so the cleaner can do its job and get in there and clean within the primer pocket. As I said before, some people just throw it right in without doing it, but I like to minimize the risk of a malfunction. So what do we need? We're going to need a Lee Universal Depriming die. This die is super cheap, $30, and you can use it with any single stage press. First thing we have to do with the die is we have to set the pin. So the pin is going to be 3/16 of an inch, or what it reads there. And if it's too long, you're going to break your pin or bend your pin. What we need to adjust it is we take a 3/4 wrench and a 1/2 inch wrench. And what you're going to do is you're going to loosen that top bolt, and then your pin is going to be able to move freely. We size our pin properly so it doesn't bend or break. You'll see I had my pin when I started reloading, I had it wrong, and it's slightly bent. So we set it to the appropriate length, and then we tighten that top bolt, and then we snug it up with the wrenches. So how do we set up our press? So we screw in our depriming die. You set your sizing dies up the exact same way, pin and all. So we have to know what we're working with. So first I'm starting with a 22-250, so I'm going to use a number 2 shell holder. Why do I use a number 2 shell holder? Because we look at our nifty little sheet here and it says boom, 22-250. It fits in a number 2 shell holder. So we plop our number 2 shell holder in the press, and now it's time to set our die. So how do we set our die? So we first pull down on the handle of the press, and the shaft in the middle is going to go up. So we want our shaft at the highest point. Once our shaft is at the highest point, you are going to then by hand screw your die down until it's touching the shell holder. Once it touches the shell holder, you are then going to grab your 3/4 wrench and give it a 1/4 turn. As you can see here, the shell holder touches the die. Make sure you tighten that top big screw there, the big nut, to ensure that the die doesn't move while you're depriming. You can see my pin is slightly bent there from me not having the pin sized correctly before. So now we're going to start depriming our brass. So with the Lee Universal die, the only thing I do not like about it is it's super loose, which makes sense because you're sizing all different types of brass, but you have to guide it up with your hand that you're not using. So the reason you guide it up is so it goes in smooth and it makes your process a lot quicker. Keep in mind we are not sizing the brass, we are just depriming it. So 243 uses the same shell holder as 22-250 and number 2. So we're depriming those now. Next, we're going with a 303 British. So we look at our sheet again, switch the shell holder out, put it in, and deprime the brass. My next casing is a 30-06. It takes the same number 2 shell holder, so I swap it out and deprime the brass. Now we're going to do some 9mm. We look at the sheet, use the number 19 case holder, shell holder. We pop that in and start depriming brass. while we deprime our brass, we are going to get some primers up there, and they're going to touch the shaft, maybe clog up your press, so you're going to want to clean your press as you go. So once I clean the brass, I like to put it in a separate container, and this container actually fits in my tumbler. So how do we prep our wet tumbler? So I have a Lyman Cyclone. This specific tumbler, when you buy it out of the box, it comes with your stainless steel pins. So you add your brass, then you add your water. So the water should be an inch above your brass, because when your brass starts rotating, the water is going to get into all those little crevices. Now we're going to add our soap to degrease, doesn't matter what type. Then we're going to use lemon juice. So this is super cheap, you can get it at the dollar store. You just put a capful, that's all you need. You can also put a little bit of case cleaner, doesn't matter what brand, just put a capful of that. So the lemon juice, the acidity in the lemon juice is what really gives you your shine in your end product. There's no better way to clean brass whatsoever. So next we're going to tip our container upside down and check the leak, so we don't want our water leaking out. So now we set our time to 3 hours. Very important at the 3 hour limit that you take your brass off the tumbler. The lemon juice will discolor your brass. If you leave it for 5, 12 hours, the lemon juice will discolor your brass. It's the acidity that makes it so shiny. So now we're going to switch over to our Dillon case media separator. But before we jump into that, we have to dump our brass through our filtration process. These strainers come with the Lyman Cyclone press. So you dump your brass through the strainers. The top tray is going to catch your brass. The bottom tray is going to catch all those little stainless pins so you can reuse them. And they pretty much last forever, so you don't really have to worry about buying new ones. Look at the shine in that brass. As you can see, I used a little too much soap there, but it doesn't hurt to degrease. So we sift our brass to get all those little pins down to the bottom. Now we are going to have pins inside of our brass, so how do we get that out? Well, this is what the Dillon case media separator is for. Dump our brass into the Dillon case media separator. And then what's going to happen is you're going to make sure your lid is closed. And then you're going to rotate and get all those pins out of your brass. So is there a certain way to rotate? Yes, there is. So you go a couple times in one direction and then stop and go a couple ways in the other direction. So you'll see the pins fly out of there, and they're in the bottom of that, and we're going to have to get them out later as well. So we spin a couple times, spin back, and I like to do this for about 5 minutes. Some people say, oh, you only need to do it for 60 seconds. I don't want any misfires. So at about 2 minutes, I dump some water in there just to get all the soap and stuff off of the brass. And then I continue for 5 minutes. Fast forward here, you see it's been stretched a couple times. Now you lay your dry towel out. You then dump your brass on your towel, and then you spread your brass out, and I like to dry them with a cloth. So you let them dry, don't let your fingers touch the brass. You can wear gloves if you want to, just to make sure that no grease gets on that freshly cleaned brass. So you can see how shiny our brass is, and we just let that air dry on the table. I like to do it, let it sit overnight. Then we rinse out, clean all of our equipment we just used, and we let that dry as well. But what about that big tub with all the pins? Well, we got to recover the pins, so we dump the dirty water into the strainer outside. Then we let our pins air dry so they don't get moldy or any mildew on them. Now we have our finished product, the cleanest brass you'll ever see. That lemon juice really makes it the cleanest brass. On the right you can see the brass I've cleaned with just a regular cleaner. and you can see how dull it is, and it doesn't have a nice shine. Where the brass on the left that we just did, that lemon juice really makes it pop and really makes it shine, the acidity in that lemon juice. And it's just a capful.